9 weeks out from the Olympia. Good morning, everyone. We are coming up on 9 weeks out. It's Thursday. Today's going to be a pull session for me. And just getting in my pre-workout meal, my favorite meal of the day. Quite a bit of food here. 45 grams of oats, 240 grams of rice, 20 grams of raisins, 50 grams of whey. Mix that all together and you have something delicious. Visuals today. So I'm going to show you some different visuals. These are actually post-workout. You see them probably here for my push day, which looked wild. It's funny, like you have food's higher and you just don't feel like you're as in shape and you feel heavy. Get pumped. Like workouts have been phenomenal. Then I like caught myself in this lighting. I'm like, oh, hey, this looks good. Let me pose here. Then it's like, whoa, this is like looking full blown. I was like around 238 pounds in those pictures. So that's after 2 meals and training. Fasting though, today I'm at 235.4. So weight's been slowly moving up, and that's been the goal. I made a diet adjustment early in the week. I had been doing 500 grams of carbs, 50 grams of fat, and 320 grams of protein. However, throughout the week, I was kind of maintaining around a little bit over 234. So early in the week, I just put in another 40 grams of carbs. Little increments, guys, goes a long way. Especially when you're trying to like stay lean and ride this out, because I'm gonna have to diet back down relatively soon. The weeks are flying by. So now carbs on train days are at 540 grams, and that's training 6 days a week. So just on my Saturday is my off day. Carbs drop down to 275 and everything else stays the same. No cardio right now, just 10,000 steps per day. And that's pretty much my plan. You ever see what I'm looking down at? This is my daily tracker. It's in Google Sheets for logging all my data, my macros, my fiber, my steps. So I can look at averages and how I'm trending over time to make adjustments and calls from there. So everything's moving really good. I'm excited. I'm up quite a bit from Vancouver and feel full. My training's going excellent, and we'll go over to the Muscle Factory here shortly and get a pull session in. All right, we are at the Muscle Factory. It's pull session B today. So this is Thursday workout for me. Tomorrow will be legs. Second back workout of the week. Total volume right now for back is 20 sets. And this has a little bit more volume in it today. However, I do more bilateral movements today, so not single arm. And also one of the movements is I do have a single arm lat row, but being that they're bilateral, it just takes less time. So I put a little bit more in for today's session. Also, this is a slight bit more upper back focused on today's session. I do a little bit more lat on the other session where I have more single arm work, so I can really get that upper arm close to the torso. This session, it's not overly taxing. Both my back days are like 20 sets for back per week is very manageable for me. It's enough to have like good growth happen. I proved my back a lot around this back volume, so I don't need more. And I also just need to prioritize that this session doesn't tax me into my leg day or for push days. And so this is the day that I would say is considered scaled back, and I leave this session feeling pretty recovered. So let's jump into the session. We'll walk through what's going on for the day. First exercise for today is a straight bar pull down. We could call this more of an upper back bias, but people get tall up in arms about it's not, there's lats still involved or whatever, but I just keep my torso leaned back slightly. And where you see the elbow finish, the elbow's not super tight to my side, so it's not heavily lat biased. Still some lat, has some teres major. You'll feel more like in that upper armpit area, so it's really good to fill in that part of your shot. Also, you're going to have some trap or delt, everything involved, but idea on this one is I am trying to get a lot of scapula movement and driving the elbows back very far. So that's why, for one, it's not the same type of cueing I would use for a lat movement, like we'll see when we get to my single arm row. So in this one, do 3 sets here. Stay in the 8 to 12 rep range. And big things like try and keep that torso locked in as much as you can. I like to start like upright, then lean back, and you'll see those scapulas start to wrap around the rib cage, and you'll feel tension right in your teres major lat area. And right when you feel that, that's your start point for your torso.
and just lock it in. All right, so next exercise, moving to a chest supported T-bar row. So it's definitely upper back bias here. Again, main thing is like really utilize your chest support. Don't get folded over in half and use a lot of thoracic flexion extension. The idea here is training traps, root delts, some teres major. So we want those to be our primary movers. So just idea here is allowing the scaps though to fully protract and wrap around the rib cage, then focus on really retracting, squeezing together, and driving those elbows back. 3 sets here, 8 to 12 reps. Man, these sessions have been phenomenal. I'm having like it's like the best workouts of my life right now. It's like nothing hurts. You have full-blown pumps. Connection's phenomenal because of the pumps, and just load and reps moving up. It's like everything you want to be happening. And when you have all those boxes checked, you're absolutely improving and growing. So moving in these sessions, like my intention and everything that happens between the rep is so important and focused. So mind muscle connection, all this aspect, that's where my mind is at the whole time during the rep. With that connection and stimulus is so high, you come off your set, you'll just be full blown pumped, which I'm not chasing the pump, but when you have that much stimulus in a muscle, like it's going to happen. And that's what causes that high levels of tension. So, but there's a balance, right? To like chasing the logbook, and you just start moving numbers. However, you lose the muscle and tension, the stimulus isn't high. So I believe is first standardize your form, create the intense intention and mind muscle connection, and in turn, the load and reps will increase. All right, next exercise, move to a single arm cable row. So I like flipping between something lat, like my pull down, into something upper back, into something lat. Gives these some fatigue time to dissipate off your lat so you can be a little fresher going and keep that stimulus high. So moving into this one, this is very much more lat biased. And again, it's going to be more focused on those horizontal fibers. On this one, I am using a staggered stance. So if I'm rowing my right hand, I'm actually putting my left foot on the platform. And what I find is that I do have a bit of rotation in my shoulder away from the cable stack, which it makes that lat really stretch around the rib cage. It lengthens it out a bit more. So for one, I get some good engagement of mind muscle connection with it, but also training those horizontal fibers in a bit more lengthened position. Cueing here is really important, is the whole time, don't just think pull back, think drive elbow down. So I'm almost trying to scrape with my pinky the ground the entire time. And the key is when you let it back out in the eccentric, do the same thing, reverse that. The biggest thing I see issues with back training is that eccentric component is not slow and controlled, and people lose tension. Like if you actually put your fingers into someone's lats while they're training, they will swing those elbows out and tension will drop off the lat. So that's why I think what happens between the rep is so important. Only 2 sets here, and it's still staying between this 8 to 12 rep range. Side note, Renee and I went to a really cool housewarming party last night, and they had a sushi chef come. This guy travels, just does house parties. So he brings this thing, a huge cooler of fish, his rice, and he just makes rolls like crazy. I had to eat my salad and chicken, but I'm going to book this guy for after the Olympia and just have a sushi party at my house. Best idea ever. All right, this will be my last compound movement, is the hammer strength iso low row. I love this machine. It doesn't look like a lot of range of motion, and it's not supposed to be. If you think about like doing a bent over row at 45 degrees, that arm path and angle, the elbows are driving like up and back. And what does that train? It's nearly like a trap row, heavily upper back biased. So if you want big traps, like this is the one to do it with, but it's chest braced. So you don't have to try to have also, issues with cardiovascular issues. Also trying to train your erectors during it, can be specifically focused on just the upper back if that's what you need. And if you're training legs the next day like me, you also don't really want to load the lower back really heavy today because we're going to do that tomorrow. So on this one, focus is utilize that chest brace and try to focus on driving those elbows up and back as far as you can, getting good retraction and controlling them back out into protraction. I say the same rep range set up here, 8 to 12 reps and 3 sets. Here we can answer one of your questions. I get asked best things to do post-show, like reversing, and any advice for a first timer. For a first timer, it's gonna be tough because you're gonna have lots of psychological and food focused drive to want to eat more. So the best thing is having a plan to start with right away and be pretty aggressive with going back to your I would start with your base diet that you had pre-peak week that was maintaining your body weight. Just because you likely had some, fun food off plan, get back on that, let the water settle. Then from there, make a pretty aggressive increase in food. What you want is a diet where you can maintain that. You don't want to be failing on your diet every week. So usually go with a 20 to 30% calorie increase. So someone just will put some body weight on that week, but they're full, and make sure you're picking foods that keep you satisfied. The best thing that I've ever done post-show to make a ton of progress is try to get through this phase as lean as I'm able to stay without the prep adaptations that are negative, right? I'm trying to get the most recoverable position I can be in with being as lean as possible. And I've gotten better and better about that over the years. So when you start your off season, you have a ton of runway to improve from. And this post-show phase where training's awesome, you get huge pumps, you can sustain that for such a long period of time. But once you lose it, that's when I see people they end up maintaining the rest of their off season because fat's high. They can't use as an aggressive of surplus, or they're eating off plan on the weekends. The rest of the time is just spent eating almost in a deficit or maintenance. So really being strict post-show as much as you can will pay huge dividends. All right, so moving on to some isolation work. Do a rear pec deck fly. Do 4 sets here. I have the cam set up on the prime on a 5, so it loads more beginning mid-range. So we already trained the rear delts so much, they're gonna be a little fatigued to get them short, so we can move the loading to start in that lengthened position and just pull everything out we can stimulus-wise. I connect really well with rear delts. They respond well, they get pumped quick. So I can put them at the end of my back session and they grow very well. If they're not for you, then I would move them to your push days. And you can train them in the beginning of the session. So for this one, staying in the higher rep range, between 12 to 16 reps. I do like to lean forward in it. I don't overly focus on trying to lock in the scapula. The rear delt attaches to the scapula, so just let it freely move. I lean forward because it's the line of force and the fiber angle, the rear delts, lines up a bit better. They're going to work either way, kind of how you sit in it, but I do find that I'm able to not bind my shoulders much, being more upright, and I feel like I do get better range of motion doing it that way. Right, moving on to bicep work. So do a hammer curl on the cable setup, single arm, so I can position myself in a good spot to move just naturally. Set this one up to where it's not, it hits right on the bottom, about 45 degrees. So kind of peak tension, about mid-range with this one. I like doing hammer curls first. For one, it seems like it is a little easier on my entire forearm, wrist, elbow, before doing bicep work. However, if you look at my biceps, that's a strong point for me. So I rather train the brachioradialis, the brachialis, get some more width to the arm and have that stimulus first, and then train biceps, my strength, last. So working on doing a hammer curl first. I'll do 3 sets here and keep the rest between 10 to 15. Last exercise is going to be a dumbbell preacher curl. So again, you are training the bicep more short and mid-range. So to get the bicep actually fully lengthened, that arm has to actually go a little bit behind the back. So that's when your single arm cable curl or incline bench curl works well. And I'll do that on my other back day. So on this one, I'm moving that shoulder into flexion, which is really where you get kind of more of that position like you're doing a front double bicep. I think it's a great alternative to doing an overhead cable curl where you don't have that stabilization of the upper arm. This way you can drive that upper arm into a pad and have really good bracing and just move at the elbow. So this one, stay with 3 sets and work in this kind of 10 to 15 rep range. And that wraps up pull session B for the day. let's go get some post-workout food in. Right, back home from training, got the post-workout in, and had to stop by HEB, our Texas grocery store. I'm walking to my office, hang on. Little light, oh man, beautiful light, isn't it? Because it's my my soft box light. We're, it ran by HEB to get a pork chop. Someone asked in the forum, like, how come no bodybuilders eat pork? It's a viable protein source for sure. You can kind of find some leanness between chicken and beef, so it has its place. But I wanted something different today because I'm celebrating. And I finished recording the contest prep module, the new one for J3U Level 1. It's 16 lectures, taking you like from the pre-prep phase, what do you do, to prep for prep, and then all the way through, like digging for fat loss, decisions to make, refeeds, how to structure your training to it, what to do with PDs, going into peak week, like how do you assess yourself to make the decisions, everything. There's more case studies involved, so it is awesome. I'm so excited. September 6th. If you're watching this in the future, this was 2024 when this happened. So that was done today, so I'm celebrating. I'm going to do a bone-in pork chop loin and have that swapped out for my protein source tonight instead of doing some chicken. So I'm on prep, but still able to have some flexibility. This is where all the recording magic happens. So when I'm in my chair, where you see me always recording, what you're actually seeing in the background, what's happening is you'll see my camera set up over here, my different softbox lights set up. So that's what goes down in the office. This was like hours of recording. So anyway, we're gonna do some grilling tonight, celebrate with the pork chop, and prep will continue. Talk to you next week.